Oh, yeah. Don't call it a comeback.
Blank slate, state of mind, graffiti
Kyle, we did it. Number 2.
The second one.
Yeah.
We're back.
We're back. We're better than ever. We're better. We're back. Something we started to talk about today and decided we'd leave for the podcast is let's talk a little bit about sequels. You know, if this is our second, we're actually currently working on the sequel of the Dead Rock Stars.
Yeah.
Sequels. But we've got some things going on, we got some things we're working on, some stuff happening, and made me think about sequels of the 80s and 90s. Actually, something you brought up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Favorite sequels of the 80s or 90s?
I mean, I think we have to exclude Empire Strikes Back because it's like untouchable. It's like Mount Rushmore of sequels. So, I mean, there's a lot of good ones. I think one that I'm particularly fond of would have to be The Wrath of Khan, Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
Partially because, Star Trek the Motion Picture was weird, like it was this hybrid between 2001 Space Odyssey and Star Wars, know, and it, they had the funky, like
super boring too,
and
by the way.
Slow as molasses. Yeah. There's like a 10-minute docking sequence.
Like
of
just
Kirk and
you just see the ship. They're like, let's use 10 minutes on this.
Right.
These nerds will love it.
And so, I mean, I guess I'm giving a little history for the listeners, but the whole franchise was in peril because, I mean, it did okay financially, but it was pretty reviled. It was like, this is not our Star Trek.
Yeah.
So what they do, man, they went to the well. They went and drew from a classic episode, Space Seed, I think was the episode that it was built on, and they did The Wrath of Khan, and it changed everything. Absolutely changed everything. It was fantastic. So I'd say I'm particularly fond of Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, 1982.
I still have nightmares about that scene in the movie where they put a worm in.
It's like a mind
control worm. Like that's like, I still see that worm crawling in the ear. No, thank you. No, thank you.
And when they're like going in, they're like,
yeah. What did Chekhov do to anybody? Chekhov never done anything to anybody.
He's a sweet kid. The reason why Chekhov was in Star Wars, I'm just flying the nerd flag here, is because he wasn't in the first season, I believe, of the original series. But around that time, the show The Monkees,
he was in Star Trek?
Star Trek. I'm sorry. Yeah, Star Trek.
Okay.
Yeah, he wasn't in the first season of Star Trek. But around that time, The Monkees came out, and they were big hits, and they wanted somebody who looked like Davy Jones, kind of boyish and handsome, and kind of cute, maybe
walking down the street.
We get the funniest looks from everyone we meet. That one, the Monkees.
Hey, we look like Chekhov. Yeah, like I think we're slipping a little bit here, buddy. Episode 2
we end up
jitters
singing
here.
every episode. We end up singing.
I'm fine with that. I got a problem with that. Great sequels in the 80s and 90s. There were some fantastic ones.
Yeah.
Is Rambo the sequel better than Rambo First Blood?
Different movie altogether. Completely different movie. The first, like, it's just, the first movie is just called First Blood. It's not Rambo First Blood. It's just called First Blood. And it's this like meditative piece of these poor guys coming back from Vietnam, and they're not received well, and they're not welcomed. And man, Rambo's just walking through this town, and the cops give him a hard time. And he just goes nuts on them. He snaps PTSD, whatever, so completely different movie. Rambo 2, though, is like shoot 'em up. Can one man,
it's like,
defeat an entire nation?
It's like he saw Schwarzenegger's Commando and was like, you know what? More guns, more bullets, more bad guys.
Yes, exactly. I think it's the other way around, though. Commando saw Rambo 2 and was like, let's do that.
Probably.
Yeah. So what about you? What's your favorite episode 2? Since this is our second episode, we're like, what's your favorite episode 2?
I have a couple. One is in the 2000s. That's going to be a pretty significant debate amongst nerds and yourself maybe. And then the more proper 80s, late 80s, early 90s one would be Back to the Future 2. I thought that him going to the future was way cooler. The Nike shoes, the floating skateboard, all the things they did, like just even the premise of getting a betting book and going back and changing everything. Like I thought that was I just loved it. I loved Back to the Future 2. I did not care for Back to the Future 3, but I loved Back to the Future 2 for sure. My 2000s hot take, my favorite Lord of the Rings film is The Two Towers.
Yes. Heard you say that many times. Yeah.
Yeah, that is not something that other people necessarily agree in because they're more purist, I suppose. But that moment where, Gandalf shows back up and then, he runs off on Shadowfax and he's like, first dawn or whatever, look to the east.
Yeah.
And that war, that battle, Helm's Deep, like seems like it went on forever. And it seems like they were losing and losing and losing. And then for him to come down that hill, man, I still get goosebumps thinking about it. I still watch it.
Yeah.
To mess with you when you talk about flipping channels like it's 1997. When you see Two Towers on there, it's like if it's close to that moment, like I'm gonna wait for it.
Yeah, that's the definition of a rewatchable movie. If you're flipping through the channels and you come to it and you're like, I got to stay to the end.
All right. So I pulled up 2 lists.
Yeah.
I've got some 80s sequels that should not have been made.
Ooh.
You ready?
Yeah.
Caddyshack 2, 1988.
Horrendous. Yeah.
Fletch Lives, 1989.
Yeah. Really bad.
Big Top Pee-wee, 98.
I never saw that one. I really enjoyed Pee-wee's Playhouse, but I never saw Big Top Pee-wee.
There's a reason for that, Kyle. 1982, the film Grease 2 came out with a young Michelle Pfeiffer.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about this one, Kyle? Are you ready? Are you sitting down?
I am. I'm seated.
It involves someone in fur head to toe. Got any ideas?
Fur. Teen Wolf 2.
Teen Wolf 2 with none other than Jason
Bateman. Jason Bateman. Was that 1988?
87.
It's close.
88 brought Crocodile Dundee 2.
Yeah. Not terrible. Not terrible. But not as good as the original, for sure.
In 1983, we have Staying Alive, which is the sequel to Saturday Night Fever. I don't even know. Let's see. There was one other that I wanted to bring up that I thought was pretty funny. That was Cocoon the Return. Why? Why do we do that?
I mean, listen, the thing about movies in the 80s, and you could probably say this, one half of this about movies now, but the thing that drove movies in the 80s, 2 reasons: money and cocaine. That was it. That's what made movies in the 80s. And so that's why movies are so weird in the 80s, a lot of cocaine. Yeah. But hey, let's do it again. We'll make more money, and that's money still drives movies today. I don't think there's quite as much coke, but the 80s were nuts.
Short Circuit 2, 1988.
Yeah, what a disaster. Holy cow.
The Fly 2, 1989. One of my father's favorite movies was The Gods Must Be Crazy. And in 1989, they made The Gods Must Be Crazy 2. I don't know if you know this, but the first one made $200 million globally in the box office.
That's wild. That is wild. That's when people would see anything in the theater, right?
Well, I mean, The Gods Must Be Crazy 2 is a really funny movie. I don't know if you know the premise of it. Basically, it's a indigenous tribe of some sort trying to be culturally appropriate, because I don't know what it was in the 80s, but a Coke bottle fell from the sky from an airplane, and they decided that it was a god, and so they worshipped this Coke bottle, and that's where it kind of started. $200 million for the first one. The second movie made $10 million, so I don't think that went so well.
And I'm sure they were both very culturally sensitive, both of them.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, I've got some pretty decent 90s sequels that were embarrassingly bad. Okay, you ready?
Yep. Okay.
Blues Brothers 2000, 1998.
Ugh, awful.
Star Wars Episode 1 made the list. We don't have to talk about that.
Oh, come on.
Yeah,
come on.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Young Guns 2, 1990.
Young Guns 2 was good. As good or better than Young Guns 1. I will stand for that.
Steaming hot take from a 1990 film.
I'm telling you, Young Guns 2 was good.
All right. Another 1990 film, RoboCop 2.
Yeah, no good. No need for it.
Oh, how about this one, Kyle? This is one we can talk about for a second. Speed 2, Cruise Control.
Yeah, so that was really bad. But the reason is because Keanu didn't want to come back, right?
Yeah.
And so I don't remember what movie he was doing instead, but Johnny Mnemonic or something awful. But he was like, yeah, I'm not coming back. And so they had to, put Sandra Bullock in a similar situation. They put her on a cruise ship, you know. Yeah, just terrible. Bad movie all the way around.
No, absolutely. All right. So,
Jay, are we missing the big one? Or are you just holding off on the big one?
No, what you got?
Highlander 2, the worst movie of all time.
You know, this is a important film for our friendship.
For us, yes, of course, yes.
As good children of the good church kids, our parents didn't let us watch all the bad films in the world, and somewhere along the way we saw a review that said that Highlander 2 was the worst movie that was ever made, starring I can't think of Christopher Lambert, and then none other than the man, the myth, and the legend, who would regularly say on talk shows that sometimes a woman needed a good smack, Sean Connery.
Sean Connery.
Yes.
There can be only one.
And so the very first film, a little bit of a cult classic, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What's you remember the premise? Because I'm struggling with the premise a little bit right now.
Yeah, I mean it's Connor McLeod.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Scottish Highlander.
He's an immortal.
Well, he doesn't. Well, it starts off in present day New York City, which was like mid '80s.
Yeah.
And you see him like in this epic sword battle, and he cuts a guy's head off, and lightning, and it's like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
And then it flashes back to like the 1300s or 1400s or something. I don't remember exactly when it was. And you find the backstory that there's this race of people who are immortal unless they get their head cut off. And they're all searching for one another because when you cut a guy's head off, you get his power. Or I guess some of them were gals too. I'm not sure.
And what was the famous phrase, Kyle?
There can be only one. Right. But every time there's a sequel, they find more.
Right.
Somehow.
Okay.
But yeah, so in this movie, you talk about culturally insensitive. Sean Connery plays a man from Spain named Ramirez, I believe. I think what's his name. And he didn't try at all.
Was he Scottish? What is he actually?
He's Scottish. Yeah, his real nationality was Scottish, but he played a Spaniard. And I think they call him the Spaniard or something at some point. It's like,
what?
Dude,
didn't they make them aliens in the second movie or something like that?
Yeah. So in the second movie, yes, you and I watched this together in your house.
This was in college, wasn't it?
Was it college?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So we watched it in the dorm room. Then we would have watched it in Barton 1.
Yeah.
And so in the second one, they try to explain how these people are immortal and that they're actually an alien race. And that they, they go to this other planet and they come to our planet. And the other thing was there's this subplot of like, we had destroyed the world and everyone lived under this dome or something.
Yeah.
It was kind of a Matrix-like subplot.
Do you think it's important that every young person, and maybe old person for that matter, watch Highlander 2?
If they want to see something so bad it's good, yes. Like, unintentional comedy where they're like, they are trying like to make a great film and it's just not.
It was so bad. In fact, didn't they just make a third film and pretend like the second one didn't happen?
The whole alien subplot thing was never brought up again. I guess it made enough money that they were like, well, let's make a third one, but let's pretend like the second one never happened. A lot of franchises have done this. Rocky 5. No one ever mentions Rocky 5.
Yeah. Is that the one with Machine Gun Tommy or whatever?
Yeah. Tommy Machine Gun. Yeah. He fights him in the street. Rocky loses all his money. He's got brain damage, all these things they never reference again. They never go back to. They kind of do lean into in the Rocky Balboa, which came out 15 years after that. And then the Creed films, they kind of make it seem as if that Rocky's kind of on hard times. He sort of just runs a restaurant. He doesn't lives in a kind of a regular apartment or whatever. So yeah, I don't know, but yeah, that one was horrendous. Rocky 5 was awful.
All right, we're already doing an amazing job. Our first segment was supposed to be 7 minutes, and we're right around 14. So,
well, I got to say one more thing.
Okay.
I got to say one more thing about my favorite. I'm ready to say this. I'm ready to say this, Jay. Other than Empire Strikes Back, my favorite sequel, my favorite number 2 of all time, Top Gun Maverick. It's perfect. It's perfect in every way.
I'm calling foul because that's a late 2020s film or early 220s.
I don't care.
It's in the 20s.
I don't care. It has cemented its place in my heart as filmmaking the way it was meant to be.
How many times have you seen it?
Probably 7 or 8 at this point. I watched it Sunday. No, excuse me, Saturday. I watched it Saturday. I missed the kickoff of the UT Oklahoma game because I had to see Tom Cruise. I had to see Maverick land that plane on the aircraft carrier. I had to see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it means that much to me.
Well, we're going to forego the fact that I think that Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is one of the better sequels, and you think it's one of the worst.
I don't think it's one of the worst. It's just not as good as the as Raiders and Last Crusade. That's all I'm saying. It's way better than Crystal Skull and Dial of Destiny.
Whatever the other ones were, yeah.
Yeah, way better. But it's not on par of number 1 and number 3.
Okay, for episode 2, I've got some new things here. I've got a little transition music. So anytime we go to a new topic, we're going to have a transition sound. Are you ready?
Ooh, let's hear it.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Ah?
Oh, wow.
What do you think?
Yeah. It's like we just got hit by a wave of something.
Yeah. So, Kyle, here's the question for part 2. What are you taking in?
Okay. So, I mean, if it hasn't been clear through, an episode and a quarter that that I am just myself. I am who I am.
You are you. And for that, I love you, buddy.
Thank you, man. I am who I am. In December of 2022, I've got to give a little context to this. I'm sitting at my desk working, and I get an email, and it sparks an idea. We're looking for Christmas presents for our children. I've got 2 boys that at that point, this was, 2 years ago almost, were like preteens. And I was like, what would be a fun thing to do with the boys? Something that would just be a great memory. They got enough toys. They got enough junk. What would be a great memory to do? And I get an email from the WWE that Monday Night Raw is coming to Bridgestone Arena in Nashville. Now, I loved wrestling when I was a kid. I got my Macho Man shirt on right now.
Yeah.
In honor of this.
The Macho Man.
One of my favorites. And so I thought, man, that would be great. We got into it in college. We watched it in college.
We did.
In Barton 1. We were there for the NWO. So I was like, man, that would be fun. And even if it's just like, hey, we go do this thing and it's kind of weird. These guys in their underwear flipping around and, beating each other up and stuff. It'll be a great memory for the Wiltshire boys, So I was like, let's do it. So we go and we have a blast. We have a great time. I have not watched wrestling since 2001 or something. So I don't know any of the characters. I don't know any of the stories. I know nothing. We go in completely blank slates and we have a blast. And so what have I been taking in? Well, since December of 2022, now we're into September of 2024. I've been watching RASSLIN again, Jay. I've been like Godfather 3. I thought I was out and they'd be back in.
I just have one question.
Yeah.
Because I know a little bit about the end of this story, right? I don't want to spoil it, but
sure.
I think your kids got into it with you and now they're out.
They're out. Yeah.
But you're still in.
So we watched it religiously, for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, all 3 of us on Monday night, and then on Friday night, we would watch it. We'd watch the pay-per-views, or they call them PLEs now, premium live event. And
on the Peacock, right?
On the Peacock. You don't have to buy them anymore. You don't have to get your mom to, to call the local cable operator like we did in the 80s.
Did you? No, did you do that in the 80s, Cobb?
No, my friend did. My friend John Cameron.
I was going to say,
his mom would always buy them for us.
I can't see Donnie and Irma spending $50 or whatever for you to watch. No,
they were 20 back
wrestling.
then, but they would not. They would not spend that money on that. Anyway,
I don't ever remember it being $20. I always remember it being insane.
Was it 50 back then?
It was crazy
back then. Really? Maybe so. Yeah. So yeah, we watched it for like a year, and then my oldest son Noah, he started to tail off a little bit. He'd pop in every now and then, and so then my middle son, Micah, he stayed with me the longest. We got to WrestleMania of this year, which was in April, and then they were both like, "See ya, Dad. You can keep watching your wrestling, but we're moving on to other things."
Did they sit you down and have a conversation about it? Or
Nope.
was it just sheer ghosted, like they quiet quit you?
It was a partial ghost. It would be like, "Hey guys, wrestling's on." And they'd come in, they'd kind of wander in. And then about the first commercial break, they'd wander out and they'd just never come back. So every now and then they'd be like, "Oh, something cool's happening." And they'd come in and look, and then they'd run out, you know.
So here's my primary question, because we're already about 4 minutes into this topic, and I'm limiting you on this one. It's fine. You can limit me on whatever the next one is.
Okay.
Why, Kyle? Why are you still watching this? Why are you watching this? Why are you a 40-something-year-old man in his house wearing his Macho Man shirt, watching these wrestlers that you don't know? It's not like you're seeing Sting up there. You're not seeing the 24-inch pythons. You're not seeing Andre the Giant. You're watching these people you don't even know. There's no John Cena. There's no Rock. Nobody's up there with front facing birds, like
double birds. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I explained that to the girls the other way, like how to like do a Stone Cold. They weren't familiar, but they enjoyed it. But today, these are people you don't know. So why are you still watching this?
Well, I know them now after almost 2 years of watching them. I know them now and I love them.
Who's your favorite?
My favorite's Cody Rhodes. He is the son of Dusty.
You talking about Goldust?
Goldust is his brother. Goldust is his brother.
Okay.
Cody is the younger son of Dusty, who was the American Dream from the 80s, 70s and 80s. Big old dude, kind of a fat guy.
Yeah.
Cody Rhodes is not. He's sleek, and they might even be in the 90s. Might have even considered him a cruiserweight. But he's not really a high flyer. He doesn't do but he'll do some moves off the top ropes. But the reason I'm watching it is because honestly, this is the truth. Man, they're great storytellers. They do a fantastic job of telling a story. Now they do it in their underwear in a ring.
So just for the sake of, let's forget the underwear in the ring, because every time you say underwear in the ring, like I have significant issues about both my upbringing, what you're doing to your children, and then what you're doing to yourself in a room right now by yourself. So give me an example of a riveting story. Just like pretend like you are going to convince me right now that I'm going to. I mean, you've done it once in my life. You convinced me that U2 was a great rock band. So here we are. We're talking about, as you say it, RASSLIN.
RASSLIN, yeah.
It's still real to you, dang it. Why, Kyle? Like, why? What story? What's a good story?
So the main event of WrestleMania, 2 nights. WrestleMania is 2 nights now, this past year. Over the course of 2 years, they've been building this story between Cody Rhodes and this group called the Bloodline. It's all these men from Samoa. They're called the Bloodline. They're all Samoans. They're all brothers or cousins. Some of the guys that you might remember from the 80s, the Islanders, the Head Shrinkers, this whole big family, the Anuai family, I believe is...
There's a thread happening here between the Gods Must Be Crazy and the Spaniard and then Head Shrinkers, just so we're clear.
Cultural inappropriation from the 80s, yeah. So the main guy since the pandemic to now was a guy called Roman Reigns. He was supposed to be like the next John Cena, next Hulk Hogan, like babyface, and the fans never took to him. And so in the pandemic, they turned him heel, and he's become probably the greatest heel since Hollywood Hogan. Like, he's incredible. The fans just hate him. But the weird thing that's happened is they hate him, but they respect him. All right. And so for 2 years, they've told this story. Last year, the main event was Cody and Roman won. And everybody was sure that Cody was going to win again. Everybody was sure that Cody was going to beat him last year. And he won. Roman straight up won. And so Cody had to fight his way back. So for the whole year.
Can I pause you?
What's that? Yeah.
When you say he straight up won, does that mean that you believe that 2 people went into the ring and Roman Reigns bested him with his abilities? Is that what you're saying? By he straight up won?
Here's the crazy part. In the 80s, they wanted you to believe it was real, but everything about it was fake. The characters were from parts unknown, and they had makeup on and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now they don't care if you know that it's predetermined, that the winners are predetermined. But in spite of that, they still make you think it's real. Every time Cody gets up there and does a promo, he gets choked up because of how much he loves wrestling. I'm not kidding. It's crazy. This family relationships, all these people, they go by their real names now, or they go by a name. It's not the Destroyer or whatever, the Ultimate Warrior. It's now well, here's Seth Rollins from Iowa, they're real people. And so it's really this weird reversal. So here's what they did. They built this story. Cody lost WrestleMania 39. and he had to fight his way back, and he wins the Royal Rumble. Which you win the Royal Rumble, you get an automatic bid to the WrestleMania main event. Right around that time, The Rock came back. The Dwayne The Rock Johnson came back, and it was going to be The Rock and Roman in the main event. And the crowd was like, "We want Cody." Like every chance they could get, "We want Cody. We want Cody. We want Cody." And so The Rock pivoted, turned heel, like changed everything, turned heel, became a bad guy again. Like he was like the number one face. Everybody loved him, going crazy for him. He went heel, became this awful heel, like beat the snot out of Cody every chance he could. And he gets to the main event, and Cody finally wins. After 2 years of fighting and struggling, he wins the championship.
Yeah, I'm relieved.
It's good, man.
Yeah.
There's little things. So Cody gathered this Super Friends team around him of good guys, of faces, and one of them is a guy named Seth Rollins. I just said his name a second ago. Seth and Roman, 10 years ago, were in a group called The Shield.
Oh.
And Seth turned on Roman by hitting him in the back with a chair, okay? And so Roman is about to beat Cody. Seth is in the ring trying to help him, and Seth is wearing his Shield garb, his Shield outfit. And Roman's got a chair, and he looks at Seth, and he remembers what Seth did to him, and he went and he hit Seth, and that gave Cody the moment to get up, recover, and put his finisher on him and win the match. It was riveting, man. It was so good. I promise you, I see the disdain in your eyes. I see the disbelief in your face. You're like, there's no way out. But if you would have watched from just January to April, you'd have been locked into.
Yeah, I don't think I would, Kyle. I don't know. I do have strong affection for Y2J.
Mm-hmm. Who's still wrestling, by the way. Still,
yeah, of course. And rocking probably, and being a hard rocker at the same time. That guy's amazing. Chris Jericho for life. But I will say that one thing you pointed out, when you kind of land on the fact that it is entertainment wrestling, and you think about all the great entertainers that we've gotten, think about all the wrestlers that have transitioned to movies that are doing so great. Let's not talk about the two big ones right now. Let's talk about some old wrestlers that were in movies, led movies, movie stars.
Yeah. I mean, Hulk Hogan was the first one to cross over. He was Thunderlips. Yeah, he was Thunderlips in Rocky III.
When did Rowdy Roddy Piper do They Live?
It was like 87 or 88.
Okay.
But that was later on. Yeah, but Rowdy Piper got into movies. Wrestlers would show up as like bouncers or muscle for, like a bad guy or something. Yeah. Terry Funk was in Roadhouse. If you go back and watch the original, the real Patrick Swayze Roadhouse, Terry Funk, who's a wrestler, was in it. But I mean,
when was Thunderlips? Was that? Oh wow, was that? It was Rocky III.
Rocky III, 82. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. 82, and then They Live as 88 or whatever you
87
said.
87 or 88. Yeah.
Okay.
So, but even now, like a guy like Dave Bautista, who's a really respected actor, he shows up in Dune. He shows up in
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy. He's Drax. Yeah. He was a wrestler, like a big time main event type wrestler, big time. And he walked away from that to become an actor. So I guarantee you're going to see Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes in movies moving forward.
Mark it down. Our future.
Yep.
Dwayne The Rock Johnson is arguably one of the more successful movie stars of all time.
Oh yeah,
like he's up there.
Yeah.
And John Cena continues to shock and surprise me
because he's a really good actor.
He's really funny. Like his comedic timing is unbelievable.
Yeah.
His turn on the bear, we talked about that last episode.
Did.
Amazing.
Yeah. When he showed up as, you may or may not remember this movie, Sisters, with Tina Fey and Amy Poehler.
Yeah, I remember.
He showed up as a drug dealer.
Yeah.
Just silent. Didn't say much.
Yeah.
But what he said was hilarious.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay. I'll take it, Kyle. That was a good segment. You did well.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. Let's hit the new transition. You ready?
Let's hear it.
Okay. See what I got. Oh, yeah, I know,
man. That's like Justin Potch Wainscott running by you. Just super fast.
You've got to ask me the question, Kyle.
Day, what have you been taking in lately? I'm curious.
Kyle, I'm glad you asked. I have been kind of infatuated with the film that came out on Netflix a couple weeks ago called Rebel Ridge. Got a little popularity, got a little bump. Its tomato meter is certified fresh at 96% with the critics.
Wow.
And the popcorn meter is interesting, sits at 70%. I think that a little bit has to do with the politics that might be involved in the film. But I got to tell you, man, I was kind of shocked and surprised by this film. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't seen this 2-hour, 11-minute film, and you like a little bit of action, a little bit of intrigue, a little bit of intensity, it's really, really good. I'm going to read to you the blurb of what the film is on Rotten Tomatoes. You ready?
Yeah.
Terry Richmond enters the town of Shelby Springs on a simple but urgent mission: post bail for his cousin and save him from imminent danger. But when Terry's life savings is unjustly seized by law enforcement, he's forced to go head-to-head with local police chief Sandy Byrne and his combat-ready officers. Terry finds an unlikely ally in court clerk Summer McBride, and the two become ensnared in a deep-rooted conspiracy within the remote township. As stakes turn deadly, Terry must call upon his mysterious background to break the department's hold on the community, bring justice to his own family, and protect Summer in the process.
Ooh.
How do you feel about that, just hearing about it?
Man, you've got a voice for radio, Jay.
I think the phrase is, you've got a face for radio. I think that's what they say.
No, I was paying you a compliment, brother.
I appreciate it. Here's what I love about this film. Number one, Don Johnson is in it, and I mean, does he do anything bad?
Sonny Crockett, man.
Yeah. Number two, it didn't hit too many cliches that I expected.
Okay.
There were lots of things that they chose to do that they didn't do that I loved. Aaron Pierce, I believe, is the main actor's name. He is phenomenal. A lot of people are calling for him to be the next Black Panther. Like, phenomenal in this film. There are things that I don't love about it, in the sense that, it takes a little bit from Rambo, First Blood. Not the sequel, but Rambo, First Blood. There are moments where this guy's just like out camping in the woods. And you're just like, it's 2024. And like, why are you camping in the woods, like in the middle of nowhere? Like, just get an Airbnb or like, Motel 6. I mean, you can like find something gross and you can sleep in that, but at least it's got some form of air conditioning, man. But it speaks to a lot of interesting things. Like there's a lot of legal ease and there's a lot of law. Like one of the things is, it starts out in the cops. They pull him over in essence, and when they do, they find $30,000 cash in his backpack, and they determine that it's drug money. And because of that, they seize it, and legally they are allowed to keep it. And so he loses this money that he's going to go bail his cousin out from jail. Which, by the way, Kyle, what would you do for your cousin if their bail was $30,000?
Man, that's
think before you answer. Would you be willing to fight an entire small town police force for them?
Whew. I wouldn't last long. No, so probably not.
But yeah, the question is, do you have a cousin that you love that much?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I love my cousins. Love all my cousins.
Would you like $30,000 and then fight a police force for him and Don Johnson in the process?
I mean, I see Don Johnson. I'm turning around though, probably,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would fight for a few very specific cousins, and I'm sure they know which one they are. Anna Sophia Robb plays Summer McBride. And
what's she in? I was looking at the IMDb when you were describing it. I recognize that name.
She was probably in The Bridge to Terabithia or something like that. I don't know. She's been around a long time.
You're right. Bridge to Terabithia. That's exactly what it was.
Okay. Well, there you go.
And she was the Soul Surfer. She was Bethany Hamilton. Got her arm bit by a shark. Yeah. How about that? Oh, that's wrong. This is
okay. Sorry.
This is our final episode.
Yeah,
we've enjoyed coming to you with two episodes.
We'll just edit that out. That's one of my favorite things that Dana Carvey and David Spade say in their podcast. We'll edit that out, and then they never edit it out. Anyway, lots of questions about police brutality, the law, and how it's set up against people. And then also how they it's more nuanced than that. They don't just show a bunch of cops that are evil, but they show the complexity of all of it. Mm-hmm. And there's some things that you don't expect that you do expect that don't happen. Aaron Pierce ends up being this, and that's not given away, but in the trailer, he's essentially a Marine combat, close quarters combat, nonviolent trainer for special teams. And so this dude just whips some fools without killing anybody. I mean, some suplexes, some body slams, everything that you need. Oh, yeah. And it's a crisp 2 hours and 11 minutes. The story moves forward. There's some very interesting twists. There's even some small town politics in such a way where I believe the characters and the choices they make and how they feel stuck in their situation, and how kind of this corrupt police chief kind of has a grip on all of the town the way he does. And so I thought it was really, really good. And it's not quite what you think it's going to be. And it actually is pretty fascinating. Do I believe it's completely plausible? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes when you get into those scenes where they're shooting, smoke bombs and smoke grenades at people, you're like, pretty sure some redneck would probably just pick somebody off from the tree line, and this whole film's over.
Right. Whatever the case, I highly recommend Rebel Ridge. And if you haven't seen it, man, I think you'd enjoy it. I think people need to watch it because I think this guy's going to be a star. And I think the guy that made this film is going to make a lot more films.
Okay.
I can't remember his name. He did The Green Room with Patrick Stewart. So, I love a little Patrick Stewart. As we both do.
Yeah.
So that's what I've been taking in.
Okay.
Now, let's talk a little bit about Kyle. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about what we've been watching together.
Okay. Sounds good.
The thing we're going to pick today to talk a little bit about is Deadpool and Wolverine.
Okay.
Kyle, let's talk about first your disdain for Deadpool and all things Deadpool.
I don't disdain Deadpool, but let me tell you what I do disdain. I don't like storytelling that gets so silly that there's no consequence. Like it's so goofy. The breaking the fourth wall, everything's a joke. That like I know nothing of consequence is going to happen because it's just a silly, stupid movie. It's like even in Marvel, like even the Taika Waititi movies, like I didn't care for the two Thor movies he made because it's like, okay, this is all silly, this is all stupid until it's not, and I'm supposed to make this pivot to now care, like this matters now, but it didn't. When Thor's spinning around talking to the monster or whatever in the basement, in the first 5 minutes of Thor Ragnarok. Anyway, so I just I don't care for that type of storytelling. I didn't like She-Hulk, and none of the it's just goofy. It doesn't really matter.
Fourth wall breaking is not for you.
It's not for me. Yeah, unless it's Zach Morris. That's the only time.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's it.
Brick phone in hand.
Time out. That's it. That's all I'm here for.
Okay.
Yeah. And so for that reason, I didn't see any of the previous Deadpool movies. Didn't see either of the first two. And the only reason I saw this one is because it's part of the MCU, and I figured that it would matter in continuity, like whatever story, big macro story they're trying to tell, that it would have some bearing. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to go see it if I'm gonna understand, what comes next. So
it had a little bit of the time variance authority in there as well, so it's kind of connected loosely with the TVA. We'll see if we ever see that again, I guess. But I, on the other hand, am a reader of comics. Yeah. I probably haven't read anything in 10 years, but I like comic books. I don't mind reading them. And Deadpool for me was a comic that I read as a young adult. And I really in the comic, he actually breaks the fourth wall.
Right.
So that's his thing. It's not like they made it a movie element.
Sure.
But it is actually his thing in comics where it felt like he was stepping from the pages and talking to you, the reader. And he was a insane character. And I didn't think they'd ever be able to pull it off on the screen. And it's kind of perfect for Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds, in a lot of ways, Deadpool in a lot of ways, is just Fletch. He's Chevy Chase.
Yeah.
Like the things he says and the way he says it, and the things that he does, like that's all Ryan Reynolds' thing. He's Fletch.
Moon River.
Yeah. It's all ball bearings these days, guys. But I love Wolverine and I love Deadpool, and I'm a big fan of the whole Deadpool series. I don't think it's for everybody. I think that there are some people that definitely don't need to watch it because they are not afraid to do anything and say anything. And if you have problems with shock humor, then this is not for you. If you are a clutch your pearls kind of person, this is not for you. But if you don't mind a little bit of shock humor and you don't mind, gratuitous violence for the sake of just humor, then then you should watch it. And Deadpool versus Wolverine was an interesting movie because, would you say it was a bad film?
No, here's the thing. I mean,
hold on. Film is what we call pieces of art, right?
Yeah.
And
it was not a film.
Okay.
It was not a film. It was a movie.
Yeah.
It was a movie.
Yeah.
And that's okay. You know, there's nothing wrong with movies. Love movies.
Yeah. Movies entertaining.
Love films too. I laughed. I thought it was funny. I thought Hugh Jackman probably gave one of his best Wolverine performances.
Yeah.
And he was in a completely different movie than Ryan Reynolds. Completely different movie. It was, so for me, it was wasted. That beautiful performance was wasted on this silly movie, which didn't mean anything. It was just, hey, what can we do to make people laugh? Can we bring out 1 million Deadpool variants and they're all jokes of some sort, you know, and they don't really matter. We're going to take the one that's from Canada where he's going to get shot like 700 times because he doesn't heal, you know, like whatever, all that stuff. Like, I mean, it was just silly to me. It was just kind of stupid. So,
did you see who all the voices were of those pools?
I did. Yeah, I went and looked, like Matthew McConaughey and
Nathan Fillion was one. Blake Lively was one.
Yeah, I mean, so I enjoyed the humor. I enjoyed, you know, I laughed a little bit. But you know, I guess maybe, you know, if polar opposites are Marvel and DC in the film, you know, DC always leans more serious, right? And so I am not quite a centrist. I'm a little bit more leaning toward the Marvel, but I have enough of this. Give me serious story that I'm okay with the DC stuff, you know, the dark Superman stories, brooding, you know, Superman or whatever. I'm okay with that. And I am more dismissive of just the silly, nonsensical, like, this doesn't matter. Whatever happens in this movie, it doesn't matter. You know,
you do know, though, you're talking about comic book characters, though, like superheroes
but I love
for
story.
children.
I love story. Give me a good story. Why do I love wrestling right now? Because I want good stories in my life. So, yeah.
Do you hear the amazing hilarity of what you're saying? That you're saying that wrestling produces some of the finest stories of our generation at this moment.
That's an extreme. I'm just saying it's good stories. It's good stories.
Okay.
We're
talking
fun.
about comic books.
We are, yeah, and that's really all wrestling is. And I'm not trying to drag us back into that, but it's just comic book or soap opera, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, soap
serial
opera,
storytelling. Good. You know, that's all it really is.
Yeah. I loved the fact that Wolverine and Deadpool essentially took all of the past non-Marvel MCU superheroes and put them into a film.
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Chris Evans' cameo wins for me. That was just fantastic. Even, and this isn't spoiling it because the movie's been out long enough that people see it, but like Channing Tatum famously has wanted to play Gambit for decade at least. And for him to show up in that outfit, as ridiculous as he was, in that accent as ridiculous as it was perfect.
As a kid who grew up in New Orleans, I was offended by that.
I don't care.
I'm teasing.
Yeah,
I'm teasing.
I don't.
No,
I think he's from Louisiana, isn't he?
I don't know where he's from, but he may be. But that meme going around of, you know, oh, I've been waiting for this a long time. That's pretty funny. I do enjoy that.
At one point, Blade says something in the movie that is so nonsensical that I don't even know what it means.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think about what that quote is. I'll have to go back and look for it. But I mean,
I don't remember.
You know, one
either.
of our 40 listeners from last week can maybe put it in the comments when they watch this.
We'd love to hear it. Yeah, let us know.
Actually, pretty excited that we got to there. By the way,
that's good for a first
episode with no real advertising. That's pretty fantastic.
It's really 38 because you and I both listened. So you know, 38.
I don't know if I did. To be honest with you,
I listened to it.
Yeah,
I did. No, I mean, so listen, I know I sound like a stick in the mud, but it's just not really for me. That type, and you know, the gratuitous profanity, and you know, just it was like profanity for profanity's sake.
Oh yeah, It was meant to be over the top.
I totally get it, you know. So it just really wasn't for me, you know. I watched it, you know. I did enjoy the, you know, the send off of all the Fox superheroes, you know, and I really enjoyed the post credit Time of Your Life, Green Day, you know, just reliving all the memories, you know, the behind the scenes of making those movies. So it was like a love letter to those, you know, those Fox.
Did
Marvel
you find
movies.
yourself wanting to dance in the theater to NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye?
No.
I did.
No, I did not. I thought that was stupid.
It was not stupid. It was amazing.
Here's what I appreciate. Here's truly what I appreciate from a storytelling perspective, that they knew that Logan was so good that we're just going to have to desecrate it right out of the chute to make it reasonable that Hugh Jackman came back to play this character.
Yeah.
So what do? We're going to dig up his grave and we're going to desecrate his dead body. That's what we're going to do. And I thought that was genius, I'll be honest, but I didn't enjoy it.
Using the time variance authority to go visit all the Wolverines in all the different times, I thought was a brilliant way to make jokes about Wolverine.
Yeah.
Because true comic book purists don't really like Hugh Jackman as Wolverine.
Right. Because he's 6'2".
Yeah. And Wolverine is like 5'4", or 5'3". Like he's supposed to be this. And so for the little Wolverine to hop off the bar stool and like land on the ground, it was amazing.
Hey, you know what? This makes me remember something that I don't know if I've ever told you this, but when I learned that Wolverine, the comic book character, is actually kind of short, and when they were casting the X-Men movie in the late 90s, you know, they started saying who's going to play what role. I thought, you may hate this, but I thought an inspired casting choice for Wolverine would have been Sylvester Stallone, because Sylvester Stallone is actually like 5'6" or 5'7". He's not a huge guy. He's not a gigantic guy. And so I was like, that might work.
I've never really thought about that.
And he's ripped.
Yeah.
And he screams.
I think that seeing Henry Cavill, I don't know how tall Henry Cavill is, but
he's big too.
Yeah, but I mean, he doesn't look like Hugh Jackman looks long and lean. It doesn't matter how much muscle he puts on him. His arms are still like down past his knees, and you're just like, what is this? And like to see like the denseness of Henry Cavill, like the Cavalrine or whatever they called him, like, yeah.
And I enjoyed that he reloaded his arms when he was fighting.
Yeah. It's a thing he does.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, it was good. I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You think so?
Totally. Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, absolutely.
Ryan Reynolds, man, he wins.
He is an acquired taste, I think. I think you've got to.
Do you think that Ryan Reynolds will be president one day?
No, because he's Canadian. Not born in America.
Okay.
He might be the next Canadian president, but he won't be not my president.
I don't know about that. Not your president. Yeah, I hear you. All right. I think we've handled that enough. I'm going to go to transition 2, and we're going to listen to some music again, Kyle. Just a little bit of. Yeah. So let's talk some Dead Rock Stars.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about how we did it. Trying to come up with the title here real quick. I didn't make this one, so I'm going to work on it real quick.
Yeah. Well, I will.
Yeah, go for it.
I will vamp, as they say in the podcast business, and while you work on that. This is a question that we have been asked so much in our other, podcast appearances, other people's podcasts. How did two guys write a book? Like when a singular author writes a book, he or she, all they got to do is just think about it and write it on their time and get it done. So how did two people collaborate, to write a book? And I really feel like our process was organic to us, but also really effective, really easy. It wasn't hard. It wasn't a strain on our friendship. It wasn't, something that was difficult for us. It was really fun. And honestly, as we're starting to write the sequel now, I enjoy the feeling that I get when you present me a chapter.
Yeah.
The tingle, I'm like, oh, here we go. I get excited.
Not the words I choose, but yes.
In my spine, Jay, going up my spine.
I agree. I have a lot of excitement. I think there's something really fun about collaboration because you get to do something and then you get someone's instant reaction.
Yeah.
And either way, good or bad, it's a reaction, and you get to like think about whether or not what you've done is worthwhile and what you need to change and how you need to work on it. And you and I have had enough conversations in our lives to know I could probably say what you think. You could probably say what I think in a lot of conversations based on stuff we've talked about before. But story is something that we both love and we both want to protect. And if it's wrestling or if it's comic books or if it's The Godfather, like for us, story is king.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we wanted to set out to do is we wanted to make a great story. And I would say that you and I have some unique giftings between the two of us. Not unique to the world, but like differently for both of us. Yeah. I would say that I'm not particularly what you would call a detail guy.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the spontaneity. I enjoy the humor. I can come up with stuff that is insane creatively. And like some of it's good and some of it's really bad. But you have the luxury of being able to tell me what's good or what's bad. And so we get to kind of edit a little bit.
Yeah.
If you were to be left to your own devices to write a story, how many words do you think you would write in one book, Kyle?
Well, if I were left to my own devices, it never would happen because I'm not a good finisher when it comes to things like that. You are the engine in our creative partnership. You are the gas pedal and I am the brake. And so, but if I did figure it out, if I did have the gumption to do it on my own, it would be much longer.
Yeah. Yeah. And, honestly, for me, I think I do better with a pairing. I do better with a team. I'm a team guy. I like collaboration. And so, I don't know, man. Sometimes it makes me wonder a little bit if some of these movie directors of our current generation didn't take a note or two from the Coen brothers or from anybody else and realize that sometimes two is better than one.
Yeah. I like what you said about instant feedback. I think that was a strength for ours, in that we never wrote anything cold, like we always talked about it and we always had an idea.
Yeah.
Like this chapter needs to be about, and it might've just been a sentence.
Yeah.
But we knew where we were going. And so, when you would kind of put the meat on the bone, so to speak, and we had the skeleton, but you would put the muscle and the tendon and the, for your chapters,
yeah.
I knew where it was going to go, but I was excited to see how you took it there,
yeah.
And I think, I think the same for me. You knew what I was going to be writing about, but you didn't know how I was going to,
yeah.
flesh it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that was kind of a fun instant reaction. And so, our process was we would have a Google Doc, and if you wrote it, when you were done, you'd say, okay, it's ready. And then I would read and I would highlight green stuff that I really loved. I would highlight yellow stuff that I thought, maybe we can, maybe tweak this or change this. And I highlight red stuff that was like, I don't like this at all. And it wasn't like, a paper from school where it's just red ink everywhere. I think that was another thing that was really good is that we were thoughtful in how we,
it wasn't so much about the grammar either on the first run. It was just about the story.
Yeah. Yeah. We just want to get the story on paper. And, and I've told you this, but I read somewhere that Stephen King said when he writes, that guy's the most prolific writer there is, but he says, when I sit down at my desk to work, I want to write 6 pages in a day. And he says, I just want to get it out there. It doesn't have to be good. I don't have to even use it, but I just want to write it. And then I come back. And what I have found when I kind of practice that, I don't think I've ever gotten to 6 pages, but when I practice that technique of just write it, just get out there and write it, and I come back to it, I usually find that it's better than I thought. I'm like, okay, there's some stuff here. And I may not use it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of a helpful technique for how the two of us can get this done. Writing independently is know where you're going to some extent, and then be thoughtful in your critique and care most about the story. And if you both have that goal in mind, then you can do it. You can work with another author to write a story, if that's your goal and your aim.
Yeah, and I think what's more important, there are lots of people that say I want to write a book. And then a whole bunch of those people never actually accomplish it. And so for us, the pairing, the team, was the thing that helped us to make it happen because, in some ways we didn't really want to let each other down. Like we thought, okay, well, he did something, I got to do something. And, you know, then it started to kind of give birth to like a little bit of a plan and then a method and then a routine. There's no right way to do it, but how we did it was we assigned chapters and we had a general working knowledge of where things are going. We made a whiteboard. We had the sticky notes, and we kind of lined up where things were going to happen. We knew the beginning, we knew the end. We didn't really know exactly how it was going to happen, but we knew where we were going. We knew the beginning of the journey. We knew the destination, and then we got to fill out the pieces. And then sometimes along the way, we're like, okay, we got to make a detour over here and we got to do this, and then come back to the story so it makes more sense. And I thought we did a really good job of kind of using our strengths together that way.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. The same thing was where I'm strong, you're not as strong. And where you're strong, I'm not as strong. And so like together, you know, our sum is better than our parts.
Yeah.
You know, we're better together than we would be individually, probably.
Earlier on, I liked writing the action chapters.
Yeah.
One of the favorite things that you wrote, that I don't know if I've ever told you this, but your chapter that you wrote about CompuLive headquarters, where Janis Joplin starts the chapter by going in and acting a certain way.
Yeah.
And some of the ideas that you came up with to make it a little bit more spy centric, you know, a little bit more, here's how we're going to do it. Like, I thought they were pretty epically amazing, and I had a lot of fun with them. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed what you did, and the way you wrote action, turned out to be pretty stirring for me. And I just thought it was a great chapter. And, you know, we got a chance to work on it and talk on it. And I don't even know what the first version of the chapter was like, because you and I worked on it so much that it became our chapter.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But like the first run of you doing that. And then I think you wrote the chapter in the hangar at the end of the book. And so those are two pretty epically important action chapters where, in turn, you know, I had to write some of the more serious stuff at the end that was dialogue, putting some pieces together that I wouldn't have probably taken a shot at before.
Yeah.
And so I think we made each other a little bit better as we went through the process as well.
Well, I always appreciated your from left field humor. You know, I think one of my favorite memories was us sitting at Oscar's Taco Shop, and you gave me the chapter you wrote when Savannah has to try to identify, or finds out that Cole is dead and is trying to figure out what happened, and she calls the coroner. And that dude is just socially inept. I think that was one of my favorite memories of just our collaboration, because I didn't know what was coming there. I didn't know what was going to happen in that chapter.
Yeah, I'm a little messed up.
No, that was
you could thank David Watson for that for sure.
But I think you've described it this way, and I think it's really perfect. You're lightning and I'm a river. You know, like if we're elements of nature, right? Like I'm slow and steady, that's,
which is fair because I don't work all the time.
But you're lightning in that, man, you can come up with it, and you can have these creative bursts of inspiration and these hilarious one-liners and these moments or these ideas that come in and so I just think our pairing, our collaboration really works for what we're trying to do, what we're trying to write. I think it really works.
I am so proud of a joke that I wrote for book 2, chapter 1.
Oh, I can't wait to read it. That
I don't think is ever going to make the actual book, but it just makes me laugh so much every time I read it. So I don't know if you're going to let me do it or not. I don't know if we should do it or not, but like it's one of those that's just subtle enough that most people may not catch it, but if they do, it's amazing.
I can't wait to read it. And I know you listeners can't wait to read it as well.
All 40 of you. Like you're riveted. As we kind of move to the final kind of part, as we get to talk a little bit about the how we did it kind of thing, like, one of the things that I think is really important to our process was the sacred fake deadline.
Yeah.
Like we're currently kind of experiencing that right now. Like we created a deadline to write these first 2 chapters for book 2, and you crushed it. You've got your chapter done, and I still don't. And if there wasn't a deadline, maybe months before I get it done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so what we did was we created these fake deadlines for ourselves, these arbitrary dates. Hey, you've got 2 weeks. You need to write these chapters by then. We'll get back together and we'll talk about it and we'll keep going. And there were times in our partnership where, man, we cranked out a bunch of stuff in a short amount of time. There were other things where things just didn't happen for months.
Yeah.
And it was okay because life was happening. And so, we're kind of in that phase right now where we're beginning to write book 2. And for me, it's been a long time since I've creatively written anything. And so getting back on that horse for me is a little different. I get a little nervous. I'm a little worried that I don't have it like I used to or whatever. And so it's like, you just kind of got to get back in the groove. Wherein the difference is, in turn, your career right now, your job is you're constantly editing, you're constantly writing. And so for you, it was pretty easy to probably turn back on. And so we're in that process right now. And the thing that has helped us, a secret weapon that has helped us kind of make this thing happen altogether, was the secret made up deadline.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's helpful because, like you said, if we're not aiming for something, it's the old adage, if you aim for nothing, you hit it all the time.
Yeah.
And so, we've got to have a target to aim for. And I think it's helpful for us, to say this is the target we're aiming at, and so as just to keep the ball rolling. And it doesn't have to be, what we're not looking for is we've got to hit the speed limit. We've got to be going 55 the whole time. Sometimes we might need to go 75, and other times we might need to go 25.
Yeah.
And it's okay for it to go like that. But I think the point is that we keep going, that the wheels keep turning, keep rolling. And I'll encourage you with this.
Just keep swimming.
This is our second week in a row. Just keep swimming.
Yeah.
We like to sing that. That may be what we title this podcast. Just keep swimming. But I'll encourage you this way. I was shocked at how easily it came back. When I sat down on a computer to write, it was like I wrote the day before. It was like I was just writing these characters in this universe the day before. And it came back so quickly. And I had so much fun. I had so much fun that the basic idea of a chapter that we had, I had to turn it into 2 chapters because I wrote so much. So I can't wait for you to read it. I can't wait for the world to read it. Because I think we're set up for a really exciting part 2. I think that's been the theme of this episode, part 2. I think we are so excited for part 2 of our own story.
My chapter that I'm writing feels a little bit more like a chapter 1 of a George R.R. Martin book, where it's just like, what am I doing? And so what is this? And so that's been kind of my issue. But
and I could see how that would be a challenge, because you're not writing. And we don't want to spoil anything, but you're not writing necessarily the characters that we created and the universe we created, but it's vital to the story that we're trying to tell. What you're writing. So I get that. I appreciate that.
So as we move into the final section of our night, we had a good conversation. I think it's going well. We're kind of killing it, man. 2 in. I think we should have a third. What do you think?
I think we should keep going. I think we should just keep swimming, Jay. Just keep swimming. Right.
Well, here's what I want to know, Kyle. What have we learned today?
I knew this question was coming, so I started to really think in my brain quite a bit. And I learned that you're not sold on wrestling as great storytelling, as a great storytelling device in 2024.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm going to have to work on that a little bit more to get you over that hump.
Okay. I've learned that story really does matter.
Yeah.
If it's a comic book, or if it's wrestling, or if it's fine art, or if it's, a wonderful novel, something that people would consider to be, 100 years from now is going to last. Do we know whether film will last that long? We don't.
Yeah.
We don't know how that's going to translate. I think we're even noticing in a lot of ways when we talk about Star Trek episode movie 1 and how long it took to show the Star Trek, the attention span of kids now, where they don't like something that's more than 30 seconds. Like, are movies going to last? Are they going to stand up the test of time? And we don't really know, but what we do know is that story matters.
And story will capture people. It will capture their imaginations. It will keep them plugged in and locked in. And so, story is king. Narrative is vital. And so I think that's why we love storytelling so much, and why we love doing what we do.
Yes. And whenever you get a chance, make a fake deadline.
Make a fake deadline. Gotta aim at something, or you'll hit nothing every time.
Absolutely. And with that, we're out. Love you, buddy.
Peace.